Well, it's not a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup, but last year in the Lukas Classic at Churchill Downs, Knicks Go used this race and a victory in it as a springboard to a victory at Del Mar in the championship event, the Breeders' Cup Classic. We'll see what happens with the field this year. Joe Kristufek joined by Scott Shapiro, and this has turned out to be a really good race in recent years. Other recent winners, Mind Your Biscuit, Fort Larned, among others.
Without question, Joe. And now with Keeneland right down the road and the Breeders' Cup Classic on many of these trainers and horses to an extent, Mind, it could make for an interesting prep. I know you said Knicks Go used it last year, running out of his own stall, then shipping out to Southern California. I'm not sure we have the Breeders' Cup winner, Classic winner in this spot, but it still is a pretty fun race despite the compact group of 6.
Yeah, Flightline, Epicenter, Life is Good are not in this field, but it is a very good race from top to bottom. Grade 2, $500,000, 9 furlongs is the distance, Scott. And there's a question as to who the public is going to gravitate to as the post-time favorite.
No doubt about it. It doubtfully will be Chess Chief. Unlikely will not be King Fury. And I doubt it'll be Kentucky Derby winner Rich Strike. But Art Collector, Happy Saver, Hot Rod Charlie, all with pretty similar resumes to an extent. And even Rich Strike off that pretty big effort, in my opinion, in the Travers, where I definitely underestimated his ability, will take some money as the Kentucky Derby winner. But what do you see the pace shaping up like in this spot?
Well, Art Collector is 7 for 8 lifetime at the 9 furlong distance, and his only loss came in Saudi Arabia. So I'm not necessarily going to hold that against him. He's got the inside post. He's got speed. Now, has he beaten the caliber of horses that some of the others in this field have faced? That remains to be seen, but I do think, Scott, he's going to be the one to catch.
Probably, especially given that inside draw, like you mentioned. Louis Saez, when he's been aboard, he's been aggressive from the gate. But Hot Rod Charlie gets Tyler Gaffalione aboard, and this is a horse that is at his best, in my opinion at least, when he doesn't have to pass other horses. He's definitely got numbers good enough to beat this field and be very competitive, but he just kind of struggles for the most part to get the job done and finish the deal, including 2 back when he lost at 1-5 in the Salvatore Mile. I'm not going to hold the Whitney against him, chasing the likes of Life is Good, but I think those two will keep the pace honest at the very least in this one, Joe. And I think Happy Saver is the class of the field and should get the right trip in here. He has run 5 straight seconds, so how much you want to hold that against him is on you. Normally, it's something I hold against the horse, and I do have a little bit of question about whether he likes to finish the deal like I talked about with Hot Rod Charlie, but he ran into Life is Good last time and didn't have the cleanest voyage in the lane, was unable to get the job done. Before that, on the 1-turn mile against Flightline. I don't think the 1-turn is his game. Prior to that, losing to Olympiad and Maxfield. So he's lost to really good horses, better than the ones that I think he faces here. And I just think the 1 1/8 will be to his liking.
Yeah, there's no question. Should have an honest pace to run at. He always seems to hang on that left lead, which I don't like about this horse. He's going to give you an honest effort. I can honestly see him getting his picture taken. I went to Hot Rod Charlie. I just think he's going to get the trip, Scott. You mentioned him maybe wanting to go to the lead. He won the Louisiana Derby that way. He was 3rd in the Kentucky Derby the last time we saw him, and the only time we've seen him at Churchill Downs. And he does have a little bit of hang in his game, but if he can just stick right on top of Art Collector, if they can go a reasonable pace in tandem, maybe Hot Rod Charlie, who I do think has an overall class edge on Art Collector, can wear him down. Art Collector could easily go gate to wire on the lead, and then Happy Saver could easily catch them both in the stretch. You know, I think all 3 horses are going to vie for the favoritism here. Art Collector likely the 3rd choice, though.
Probably. The interesting thing about Art Collector is a little tight, as you mentioned, Joe, about a class check to an extent, but he's the one that has the nose for the wire. 10 wins in 19 starts, and Happy Saver and Hot Rod Charlie, our top 2 picks, kind of have an affinity for running 2nd instead of 1st, which is definitely concerning. What do we do with Rich Strike, the Derby winner?
Well, you talked about affinity. We know he's got an affinity for Churchill Downs. He broke his mate for claiming 30 by 17+ lengths in a canter. Then he won the Kentucky Derby at 80-1. Some question about his overall quality. Had a great pace setup the day he won the Run for the Roses. but he did run well, like you mentioned, in the Travers last out. That being said, he was still a distant fourth behind Epicenter, Cyberknife, Zandon. Cyberknife did not come back to run all that well. Zandon is Zandon, and Epicenter, I think, is one of the best horses in training. He's going to make his late run, Scott. Is he going to get extra play on the tote board at Churchill Downs because he's a Kentucky Derby winner? Kind of, sort of, maybe. But I think the three horses we talked about before have a better chance to get their picture taken.
I agree, and I do think he will get extra play, especially in this field with Art Collector, Happy Saver, and Hot Rod Charlie. Certainly very formidable opponents, but not crowd favorites to bet like some other horses or like an Epicenter or a horse with a really much, much stronger resume. So my thing with Rich Strike is he'll probably run his race. He'll probably come with that late run like he loves to do and loves to do at Churchill Downs, but I think he'll get a little over bet, so I'll fade him certainly on top.
A very intriguing edition of the $500,000 Grade 2 Lukas Classic, going 1 1/8, a little bit of speed, some horses that like to run from off the pace, and your Kentucky Derby winner returning to Churchill Downs. For Scott Shapiro, I'm Joe Kristufek. Enjoy the races at Churchill Downs on Saturday and Sunday, closing day of the September Meet.